Hey, what's up, phone lovers, and welcome to the Mobile Roar podcast for the week of Halloween 2014. I'm Joe Fidua,
I am Kevin Kraus.
and we're missing Chris. We're hoping that he's gonna catch up with us a little bit later on in the episode, but we're gonna start things off without him. And yes, tomorrow is Halloween, so this is our special Halloween episode. We did not have any special costumes like we did last year.
Yeah, actually, we pretty much have nothing special for Halloween, but uh, it is Halloween tomorrow, so
I do have my costume in the background that I wore last weekend, so that's something at least. And I have a jack o' lantern in my lower third thing, but
yeah.
that's as
Actually,
much as
that's
you can get.
the real sweet Lantern, the Phandroid jack-o'-lantern, which is really cool. I thought you did a really awesome job making that in the template. And if other people haven't seen it, if you go on Phandroid, you can actually go on there,
Yeah,
click through right now, download this template, throw it on a pumpkin, and have your very own Phandroid jack-o'-lantern for Halloween, which is pretty cool.
yeah. You kind of spoiled my win of the week. That was what I was going to say for my win of the week,
Well, you
but
can talk more about it later. I
yeah.
mean, it's just that
Uh,
cool.
so yeah, Halloween, spooky times, slow week for tech, really.
Kind of slow. There's some big news going on, some big stuff happening, but
Yeah, I
it's
guess
hard to.
I always equate big news with like product launches, and
Well,
there
we
was
had,
one product
yeah,
launch, but there was a lot of other kind of crazy stuff going on. The first thing we'll talk about is one of them, and that's the Apple Pay Google Wallet being blocked situation that's been going on. Everyone's excited to start using Apple Pay, but there's a lot of retailers that are blocking it right now because of an app or a service, whatever you want to say, called Currency. And yeah, Kevin, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
yeah. So it's this really stems from this new initiative. It's a group called Merchant Customer Exchange, MCX is how they shorten that down, and they've got this app or this payment system in development called Currency, which actually isn't going to rely on NFC. It actually kind of, in my opinion, takes a step backwards, and it relies on, I think, like the receipt prints out and you scan a QR code on the receipt, and then it makes a QR code on your phone, and the person scans it with a scanning gun at the cash register. I don't know. It's some seemingly convoluted system.
It's a works way of doing things
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
not it's not really technologically forward thinking. It's kind of stuck maybe a couple years ago. It's something that's certainly what shouldn't. Um, NFC seems like a better solution, but that's beside the point. There's a bunch of retailers that are signed up under this MCX group, including Rite Aid and a few other pharmacies, and I don't know. There's a whole bunch of others. I think Joe
Yeah,
has.
like there I have a list here like places like Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, Chili's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Lowe's, Meijer, Old Navy, Walmart, a lot of big retailers.
And I mean, the funny thing about this is that a lot of these bigger retailers are some of the only stores that really consistently have NFC payment options in their stores. Because I mean, you expect, 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven's been a store that's had NFC checkout in a lot of its stores for a while now. And you might not expect that at your local convenience store if it's not a chain convenience store. But so the thing is, a lot of these retailers, um, right when Apple Pay launched, and I think Rite Aid specifically is kind of where people started to take notice was uh, customers. While Rite Aid was not initially signed up, and a lot of these retailers weren't signed up in this initial batch of stores that would be officially supporting Apple Pay. As we know, if they have an NFC payment terminal in their store, even if they don't officially support Apple Pay, um, in most cases you're still able to use Apple Pay with any NFC terminal, even if it's not officially supported by Apple. So some people had been using Rite Aid for the first week or so of Apple Pay. They've been going to Rite Aid and paying with their phone at the NFC terminal, and it was fine. This stopped working, and some leaks and some official statements later come to find out that this group MCX, a lot of the retailers that are signed up under MCX have opted to um, disable NFC payments altogether. So that not only affects Apple Pay, but it affects Google Wallet, and they're not going to have an NFC payment option in their store until Currency launches next year. But again, Currency is not even an NFC payment option. So that's kind of the crux of the issue. I mean, it's a little more nuanced when you talk about why this is happening. Um, but it's not. I mean, in my opinion, it's not good for consumers. It's not good for the future of mobile payments. It's trying to force a certain system on people and it's almost like Apple Pay came out and people were like this. Once Apple Pay launched, all these other mobile payment services said we don't have a chance against Apple
Yeah.
Pay. Like, so this is like an almost like a drastic like back against the ropes kind of reaction. So I don't think it's good for consumers necessarily. It's definitely not good for
Yeah,
Apple
you
Pay.
you definitely did not expect there to be any pushback like this against Apple Pay.
Yeah, it's weird. It seemed like the kind of technology that almost every retailer would embrace. And MCX, I think they've said that if some of their partners choose to still take Apple Pay, they're not gonna stop them from doing that. But there's still a number of
Yeah.
notable retailers that have stopped, and I
And
think
there was a story today about Meijer, which is a regional grocery store, uh, Walmart type store. They sell like everything. Actually, in Michigan and a couple other states, there was an article on The Verge about this, and they are one of the ones that they're going to continue accepting Apple Pay and Google Wallet NFC type stuff alongside the MCX thing. So hopefully we see that well, a lot of these retailers will take that route.
yeah, and so they've been grilling the people at MCX and the people behind Currency and asking why is this the case and why is it varying by merchant by to merchant and they pretty much just said like these retailers they know their customers and they think they're making the choice that's right for their customers. I don't know exactly what I'd have to look a little bit more into what the benefits of Currency, but from what I've been reading in reaction to this, there aren't really any obvious benefits to going with Currency over Apple Pay or Google Wallet. So, um,
Well, I mean, the only benefit I can really see is if you have a phone that doesn't support Apple Pay or Google Wallet, you can use these weird QR code things to pay. But I mean, you have to believe that now that Apple Pay is a thing, phones are going to be coming out with this pretty standardly.
yeah, and I mean, that's the one thing that Apple Pay, um, while Apple Pay might have a chance to kind of dominate the mobile payment space out front. I mean, they'll become sort of the poster child for mobile payments. It sort of resurrects NFC. NFC was kind of dying off. There was a period where we were moving towards NFC was a standard Android feature, but then it really didn't catch on, and manufacturers started to kind of go away from emphasizing NFC as a feature. So now I think if NFC becomes a more ubiquitous technology um, with Apple Pay, that benefits Android users, like we've said several times on this
Yeah.
podcast and posts. I mean, more Android phones will take advantage of NFC. More stores will accept the payments. So it's a win-win. But in this case, it's not a win because we're kind of taking a step back.
Yeah, so that's that. Hopefully, this gets resolved soon, so we can all start using our phone to pay for stuff. Because I mean, I've had a Nexus 5 for quite a while now, which has Google Wallet on it, and I've never used it to pay for anything.
Well, it's
Just not many opportunities to do so.
yeah, it's and that's like the big issue. I mean, it's a larger issue than the actual payment method. I mean, there's uh, uh, carriers like Verizon blocked mobile wallet capabilities on Nexus devices in the
Yeah,
past, and
ISIS, that
and well, ISIS, formerly known as ISIS. I don't know what they're called now, but they're not ISIS anymore. Uh,
smart move changing the name, by the way.
yeah, I mean they absolutely need to do that. But yeah, it's just there's going to be competitors, and I mean I guess the closest analogy that you can look to in the current kind of landscape is like you have like Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express. And I mean, that's maybe the only place where it's kind of common, like, oh no, we don't take American Express here. We only take Visa or MasterCard. We don't take Discover. That even isn't as big of an issue these days as it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. I think people were a little more selective on that sort of stuff. But that's sort of the territory we're entering now, but it's different because something like Apple Pay incorporates all of these other payment um,
Yeah.
outlets into Apple Pay. So it's a really, I mean, this is kind of what has always been the challenge with mobile payments has been making them work in a way that it's accessible to the most people and easy for them to use. secure, a cheap technology. I don't know. There's a lot of things that make
And the
it.
thing is, it's strange because usually there's always a battle to like before something becomes standardized, but the standard is already NFC, and there's already different apps that are using this standard. So why wouldn't something like currency come out with, I don't know, like an Apple Pay competitor that also uses NFC instead of trying to completely do some other thing? I don't understand it.
It could be that there is an NFC component to currency. Maybe currency has like options for NFC and the non-NFC version. I'm not sure. It could just be that they want to shut off NFC in the meantime to kind of slow down the rise of Apple Pay until currency is ready.
Yeah.
That seems like maybe what they're doing too. So I don't know. I don't think it's good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely not good for consumers. It's something that everyone should is rightful has a right to be upset about. And but there are plenty of retailers that are doing it. Like I was saying actually right before we came on here, it's funny that this whole conversation has been about these mostly about these sort of pharmacy stores like Rite Aid and CVS, because others like I was at Walgreens yesterday, and they prominently show an Apple Pay logo on their little checkout device, and they have the NFC scan still. So there's still plenty of stores that are going to support it, and I don't think this will be a huge blow, but it isn't good.
I have a feeling that Apple Pay is going to just eventually steamroll it, so we should be fine. All right, so enough about that. Let's move on to something that you were able to check out this week in person, and that is the Motorola Droid Turbo.
Yeah, the Droid Turbo. Jeez, this the event itself. So I went up to New York City, as I often do, to check out these device launches, and the event itself was kind of a strange one. Wasn't all the pomp and circumstance that you usually get. It was kind of low key. But they did announce the phone, and um, it's a nice, in my opinion, it's a real nice phone. I mean, if you think it's kind of it's made by Motorola, and it's built right with the same DNA of the new Moto X, the 2014 Moto X, and the and even the Nexus 6. It's got a lot of features that might appear in in those devices, both software and hardware. I mean, it's got the Snapdragon 805 chip that we're going to have in the Nexus 6. It's got a 5.2-inch Quad HD display, which is nice, a nice size. It's not as big as the Nexus 6.
Yeah,
Um, the perhaps the two biggest things about the Droid Turbo compared to say the Moto X and the Nexus 6 are the inclusion of a 21 megapixel camera and a 3900 milliamp hour battery that they claim should get 48 hours of battery life. And granted, I haven't been using it as my primary device, but I've been using it a lot as a media device and to surf the web. And I've had it powered on for over 48 hours, and I've still got about 30% battery left right now. Because we did get to walk
that's
out with
awesome.
the device, so I haven't turned it off since I turned it on at the event on Tuesday morning, and it's still strong, going strong. So I'm initially pretty impressed with it. My concern is that because it's this Verizon exclusive, because it's the Droid brand, which kind of kickstarted Android's rise to prominence, but has since then kind of it doesn't have the same cachet anymore. People kind of look down on the Droid brand almost, I would say. So my concern is that even though this device really is on the same level as that new Moto X and the Nexus 6, it's an option to be considered right along with them. My concern is that it's going to go overlooked. People aren't really going to be thinking about the Droid Turbo. But it's got some cool things going for it. I like it.
It's a very strange thing to me because, like you said, it has a lot of the same specs as the Nexus 6, except it's a little bit smaller and it's got, better battery camera. I wonder why is the Droid Turbo not the Nexus, and why is the Nexus 6 not some phone for Verizon? Because I just feel like for a Nexus phone, they haven't really sold that great, and the phablet is something more that like Verizon could really push. I can't see Google really pushing a phablet on people because they haven't even been able to push, regularly sized phones. So I don't know. It's a little strange to me.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I think it's
Though again, I guess I keep overlooking that the Nexus 6 is going to be available on all carriers, so it does have
yeah.
that.
And I think that it's sort of the way things are trending. Even you look at the iPhone 6 Plus and all that stuff. I think things are trending towards those phablet devices. I think if anything, Google just kind of wanted a development level phablet device in their lineup that developers could really use to build apps that were appropriate for the bigger screens that are out there. So that might be part of the reason. The the cool thing about the Droid Turbo though is that whereas the Nexus 6 um, looks for the most part just like a bigger new Moto X, pretty similar design. The Droid Turbo has some interesting changes in the design. It still kind of has the general footprint of a Moto X, kind of the curved back, in a different shape. Some people have said it's a little ugly. It's not as sleek as that Moto X or the Nexus 6, but it's got some cool options. I really like this. They've done away with the Kevlar that they used to do, and they have this new thing called ballistic nylon, which is like a woven fabric on the back, but it's a cool texture and it actually looks really nice. I mean, it's got an interesting look to it, so um, it's cool. It's got stock Android like the Moto X. It's got some Moto services in there, but for the most part, it's going to be easily updatable to later operating systems. They're guaranteeing that it'll get Lollipop pretty soon after that comes out. So um, it, I don't know. It's if I was on Verizon and wanted an Android device, I mean, the Droid Turbo is definitely a
Oh
pretty
yeah,
tempting option.
yeah, I would choose it over the Nexus 6, which will eventually be on Verizon too. But I did a poll on was that Wednesday or Tuesday when they announced
Tuesday.
it, whatever day it was. I had like a chart that compared the Droid Turbo to the Nexus 6, and then I had a poll at the end of it asking people, which one is better, which one do you want, and the voting very close. Nexus 6 got 1,999 votes. Droid Turbo got 1,995
Oh,
votes.
really? That's surprising.
Yes.
I would have
So
thought that, especially kind of with the typical Phandroid reader who seems to be, I mean, and I don't blame anybody for being more into the stock Google Nexus stuff, but yeah, it's interesting to me that it was that close. I thought that the Nexus 6 would have been, thousands of votes ahead of the Droid Turbo, but they are pretty on par, and it's basically, um, and spoiler, this is why Chris isn't here because apparently he's out buying a Droid Turbo, but
yeah.
um, if I mean, ignoring that it's a Droid device, I mean it pretty much is just a smaller Nexus 6. So if you want the Nexus 6 without the phablet form factor, get the Droid Turbo.
All right, so that's that. And then I guess we'll move on to some of our quicker news. And we're
Do
we're
you want to
getting a
grab this
lot of
question real quick?
questions. What's that?
We got a question. Should we grab this real
Yeah, I
quick?
was just
Time
gonna
real
hit
quick.
that
Yeah.
because I asked for people to send us questions on Twitter before, and pretty much every single question we've gotten, plus the question we just got during the show, has been about the Nexus 6 pre-orders, and that was kind of a disaster yesterday because they started at like I think it was 1 p.m. Eastern,
Yeah, right about 1 p.m. Eastern.
and they were just like on and off, available, unavailable. Oh, this color is available now. This storage size is available now. Okay, now they're all gone. Just a complete disaster. And I've seen a lot of people make comments about this, pretty good comments. Why is this happen when it's just pre-ordering? Okay, like
Yeah.
wouldn't you think a pre-order would be okay? Let's see how many people want this phone, and then we can make this many.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, if they presented it with the idea that this is a pre-order, it doesn't necessarily. If you buy early, you're guaranteed to get like the first shipment. But just because it's a pre-order, they can make it clear like you're not guaranteed to get the first shipment if you buy late. But yeah, there shouldn't be like a cutoff to a pre-order.
Yeah, pre-orders should not be going out of stock and all that. It's really silly. Um, but yeah, so a lot of people have just been asking us. Matt Groff asks, how many Motorola Nexus 6s do you think were actually sold through the Google Play Store? What do you think of the pre-order system? I could not even make a guess really how many were sold.
Yeah,
I
it's impossible to tell because part
Yeah,
of me finds it like very unlikely that there are even 20,000 people that are waiting in line to get the Nexus 6 right when it's up for pre-order, you know? Because
Yeah.
Nexus devices generally don't sell that much. Um, it certainly wasn't the level of like an iPhone launch where you have like 10 million ordered before the device is even available. I'd be surprised if they even broke a million. I mean, that's just seems kind of ridiculous for a Nexus 6, just given that it's a phablet, that it's, um, you know, the has the Nexus sort of appeal to it, but it doesn't have a
This
huge
wasn't even the carrier model. I mean, this was the put $650 down
Oh yeah,
model.
yeah,
That's
and that's
a
the other
lot.
thing. This is yeah, how many people are ready to drop $700 on a phone that um had no hands-on or reviews even up to that point, you
Yeah,
know?
all we've really seen is pictures. There have been no reviews at this point, so Ay. Uh, at the real B-Box asks, "What the bleep happened with the Nexus 6 launch yesterday?" Launch in quotations. At DB Arrow, I want to know if GamerCore was able to get in his order for the Nexus. I don't think he was able to.
I don't think he did get it, which might be why he ran out and wanted to get a Droid Turbo because he wasn't going
Yeah.
to be able to get the Nexus 6. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to ask.
George Chave, I don't know, just asks, or he just commented, the pre-order issue probably happened because they want you to buy the Nexus 6 through carriers in a couple weeks. It was probably strategic. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but when has a Google pre-order ever not went down like this? I mean, it's just
Yeah,
kind of
it's
how it
always
always
like this.
happens.
But but it's always is. This happens, and then we have like the conspiracy theory surface, like oh, like it's there, it's a generated crisis. Like there, it really isn't a stock shortage. They just want you to think it is. They want you to think it's more popular than it really is. Um, I don't know.
Oh, this reminds me. Wait, I don't think we talked about this last week. But did you hear about how horrible the Amazon Fire Phone sold?
No, we didn't talk about the specific numbers.
Yeah, I have to pull it up real quick, but apparently it did really bad, and Amazon like lost a bunch of money on it.
Yeah, now aren't they giving away like two Fire phones for the price of one or something?
Yeah,
They're
and
having a
everyone would
fire sale on
know
the
if
Fire phone.
they would have read your review that this is not surprising.
Yeah, I mean it was a bad phone. Um, I don't really have anything else to say about it.
When, when your commercial for the phone shows like children using it, I don't really know what message you're trying to send. Uh, yeah, so apparently operating loss of 544 million.
Really?
Yep.
Dang. Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, so moving on and sticking with Amazon here, the Fire TV Stick, which is the Fire TV but in the shape of a Chromecast,
Does it
and I
have
think
actual
that's
Fire TV like applications built into it? So is it more than a
yeah.
Chromecast?
I
Cool.
mean, I'm pretty sure it is exactly same interface, same apps, same everything as the Fire TV, but it's just in a cheaper, smaller package. Because the remote has the voice search still, and like it's kind of like Roku did, where they made that Roku stick, which was just exactly the same as Roku 3 or something, but a little less underpowered and cheaper and easier to put in your TV.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean when you think about those TV devices, they don't have to be like the most powerful thing in the world to do what they
No, they
do.
don't.
So
And that's probably the thing with the stick version of the Amazon Fire TV. It probably doesn't have all the gaming stuff that the original one did. This is probably just more of a strictly streaming service. So I'm excited. I'm going to be getting the Android TV, or what do they call it?
the
The
Nexus
Nexus
Player.
Player.
Yeah, I'm interested to see
I'm
how.
really excited to check that out because I've kind of become a set-top box connoisseur. Unintentionally, I have a lot of these devices, so
Yeah, I
uh,
was actually my dad the other day was asking about boxes because he wanted to get he wanted to stop having cable at but he wanted what was the best box. He's like, should I get the Roku or get like whatever? I was like, you know what? I wish Joe was here to answer this question.
it's a tough question. I know because for someone like your dad, who I mean, how old is your dad?
I mean, he's pushing 60, so he's
Okay.
got it.
Yeah.
He's techno he can get technology, but he also um he's the kind of person where you kind of cringe when you have to text back and forth with him.
And I feel like a lot of people just want to say, "Oh, just get him a Chromecast, $35." Well, the thing about Chromecast is you need a stupid phone to do anything with it, and that's a lot tougher of a sell for an older person like your dad or my dad. I got my dad a Roku last year, and he absolutely loves it. He's about the same age as your dad, horribly, horribly, horribly technologically illiterate, but he could figure out how to scroll to the History Channel app and watch stuff. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good. It's good for I think those there still is the future is still in that realm. I think eventually they're gonna work out because this is what they've been trying to do with Apple TV for so long is work out a deal where you can get a cable subscription for your Apple TV or whatever and be able to have the kind of modern version of navigating your television interface and have all the content but have the apps and everything integrated. So I think it's still moving in that direction, which is why I'm excited about the Nexus player because I'd like to see Google's latest take on the whole approach.
all right. So moving on, the FTC is suing AT&T for promising unlimited data, but then not really actually giving unlimited data. Which I'm always glad to see carriers get called on their bullshit.
Yeah, the FCC, out of all of the government organizations that kind of screw up and and mess things up for people, I think the FCC generally has the people's back, and they're generally looking to protect consumers, and they're generally doing good things. So I'm always glad to see them when they take a good stance on net neutrality, or they sue a carrier, or they block whatever merger from happening. I think that it's all always they always kind of do the right thing. So this is good too.
Yeah, keep it up, FTC.
Stick
We're
it to
with
the man.
you. Okay, did you see this? The gold Moto 360 popped up on Amazon for $300.
Oh, really? No, I didn't see it for that.
Yeah, it's the metal van version, and they call it a champagne. Where have we heard that before?
Hmm.
I mean, it looks like a gold watch.
Yeah, it's nice.
People like your dad would love a gold watch like that.
Yeah, I don't know if my dad's more of like one of those like G-Shock type watches, like
Oh, okay.
the
I
digital with
just feel
like
like
the
people our dad's age generation, they like gold jewelry a lot more. Like my dad has a gold wedding band, whereas I
oh
have a
yeah.
silver wedding band.
I think we've definitely shifted as in this generation, I feel like, especially when it comes to wedding bands. But yeah, no, it's I'm sure it looks nice. I like the way the Moto 360 looks in general. So does it have the a metal band is what it has, or is it just a gold just kind of
The
casing?
body, the like the case of the watch and the band are both gold.
Interesting. And it's a little more expensive to get that one.
Yep, it's $50 more expensive. So, update from
Crazy.
Christopher Chavez. He
Oh,
has been in the Verizon store for 2 hours now.
uh,
So I'm not sure he's going to be making it into
uh,
this episode.
maybe he'll want to phone in with a win and a fail or something. No,
You
I mean
should
that.
all just tweet at him at GamerCore and yell at him because he knew this podcast was today, but for some reason thought he was going to be able to do this before it. I'm not sure. All
I
right.
guess it's a big Droid Turbo launch day. It's just like when Apple comes out with a new iPhone, there was probably like a line out the street.
Got to get that Droid Turbo. Party like it's 2008 or whenever the Droid first came out. All right. Microsoft launches the Microsoft Band. Is called. It's a fitness slash wearable. Kevin, I know that you were saying before the show started you're not really liking this thing. I think it's pretty neat. So tell me why you don't like it.
I mean, it's not that I don't like this particular thing. It's that I'm just not a fan of this idea that it's an easy type of device to make, so every company wants to make one, It's like, it doesn't take much it seems like it doesn't take much time or effort for companies to produce a little rubber band. It might have like a screen on it, it might not, and it tracks your heart rate and your I'm kind of scarred by brief amount of time I spent with the Galaxy Gear Fit or the Galaxy Fit or whatever it was called, the
Yeah.
Gear Fit. That thing was terrible. And I don't know. Everybody wants to have these $100 fitness bands or these $200 fitness bands. It's um and the flip side is not just the companies doing it, but then the people that buy these. I know so many people that walk around counting their steps, and they're not necessarily healthier, but for some reason they get this inflated sense of like, oh, I'm healthy because I wear this, because I know how many steps I took today.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes
yeah.
me like healthy. So
You're only healthier if you use that information to do more.
yeah, and I guess in some small way, just being aware of it probably does make you want to be a little more active, but it's not like it's turning you into a marathon runner just because you're
No.
wearing the Microsoft band.
Um, so I think it's pretty cool because they didn't take the smartwatch route. I think if they would have just come out with a smartwatch, that would have been lame. But they took the Fitbit route. Like this is so much more a Fitbit than like say a Moto 360 or something. This is definitely a fitness device. It has a heart rate monitor. It I had a list here of all the things it could track. Um, but it could track a lot of stuff. It's not just like, hey, we made this watch with a touchscreen, and oh yeah, it can track your steps too. It's a fitness device first, which I think will help it. The other thing that's going to help it a lot is on day one, it is compatible with Windows Phone, Android, iOS. And that's a big selling point to be able to do that. I think that's why something like the Fitbit has been pretty successful, is because you can buy it and it will work with pretty much anything you have. Um,
Yeah, but
so
then the
I think
question
it's pretty
becomes,
cool.
what does Microsoft's band do that these other devices that already exist don't? Like, why should I get the Microsoft one?
That's a question that will really be up to the person, I guess. But just some of the things it does besides the fitness, it has Cortana integration, so you can ask questions and get answers, and you can check like your email and your calendar. I'm pretty sure. I think you get phone notifications on it. So
So it's a little bit
uh,
smarter. It does some smart
yeah,
integration.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's $200, which that's kind of steep. I think they should have tried to hit 150, or maybe. I mean, I guess you can't go $99. It is pretty much smartwatch, but
I mean, don't worry. I'm pretty sure it'll be $149 within 6 months.
yeah. I mean, I am skeptical. Well, okay, I'll say this. They didn't put Windows in the name of it, which I think is a great thing. I think that is like automatically going to help this product.
Hopefully. But I
Uh,
think Windows and Microsoft are so synonymous already. I don't know. It is like, because when I first saw it, I was like, it wasn't apparent to me about the multi platform support. So,
yeah,
um,
and that I'll touch on that a little bit more in my fail too. But yeah, I think it's a kind of a neat little device, and we'll see how it does. All the Microsoft people today are super excited because they announced it last night, and you can buy it today already, so that's cool.
yeah,
And they
it's
their de-
interesting.
all right, so then last thing that we'll hit on here in our quick news section: Google Glass is now banned from 56,000 movie theaters worldwide.
No.
And is anyone surprised? I mean, come on. As long as movie theaters have been around, they've said you cannot record the movie, and a Google Glass is a recording device, so this makes perfect sense. But I'm
Yeah.
sure people are going to freak out about it.
This is actually a kind of a side story, but it's interesting. This touches on this topic. You say how they've never allowed recording in a theater, but I was actually interested or intrigued to find out. I was watching some show about like one of the guys that really blew up like the piracy market like back in the early 2000s for digital online distribution. And it turns out for a long time the rules actually didn't say you couldn't record a movie because it was sort of those same rules that everyone always used, like personal use, like you can make a copy of a CD on MP3s as long as you own the hard copy. It's a personal use, and you can have a ROM of a game as long as you own it because it's personal use. And apparently, it wasn't technically illegal to record a movie in the movie theater because you paid to see the movie, but
Oh,
it
I
was
see.
illegal to distribute it. But now it's more clear. Now you can't record movies at all.
Oh man, I always think of that great episode of Seinfeld when Kramer sneaks in like video, one of those old VCR video cameras. They had to like put on your shoulder. It's
Yeah,
like trying to hold it under his coat.
with the full size VHS tape in there.
Yep. Man.
Man, yeah, my family used to have one of those. That was
Yep. Same
crazy.
here. All right. Wins and fails of the week. Kevin.
So my win, and I was actually thought I would be stealing this from Chris, but Chris didn't show up, so I don't have to take it from him. Is a video came out from the Phone Blocks guy, who I guess is like a community manager for the Project Aura thing, and it shows a I mean, I don't know fully, but a functional Project Aura prototype that isn't connected to some other big motherboard or anything. It's an actual phone with the working blocks all put together with a screen running Android. And it, I was just impressed with that. I mean, it remains to be seen how this concept works out, both in terms of how good the devices end up being and how people in the market respond to it, how they're going to sell this. But
Yeah.
just to see that this is an idea that pretty much is only a year or two old. Someone said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had this modular phone system?" And they sat down, they said, "We're going to do it." They did it, and they made it in a package that's the normal size of a normal cell phone, a normal smartphone, and it
Yeah.
customizable. So I'm really impressed with that.
I mean, when was Google I/O? Was that in July?
March, June,
June? Okay.
yeah,
June or
late
July.
June.
It was in the summer. But yeah, at Google I/O, I remember they had the phone blocks thing, Project Aura, and they were able to get it to boot, but like they couldn't actually do anything with it. It would just kind of like boot loop, and that was a big deal. So now, a couple months later, they already are at this point. I mean, pretty impressive.
There's still a way to go. This is like the first prototype, so they'll be revising prototypes over and over. And I
Hmm.
guess um, they're having like another developer conference or something to come up with ideas. But I think the next step is apparently these prototypes, and I think that next prototype is going to be made by Toshiba. So I think these initial prototypes, all the components are coming from the same manufacturer, so they can kind of make them work together. I think the real big next step is being able to integrate it so all the components from different hardware manufacturers can come together and make one device. But I mean, I'm impressed regardless. Even if it was just, Toshiba made several different blocks and it was only Toshiba that did it. If they had a customizable phone like that. It's pretty impressive, pretty cool. I mean, that's something we haven't even really seen. I mean, that's kind of goes back to desktop computing, people that are upgrading their desktop, but even desktop computers have never been this modular where it's easy for the consumer to do. You have to have a little bit of technical know-how to be able to change some stuff on your desktop computer, but
Oh
this
yeah,
is
for
just like
sure.
plug and play, like you're putting a cartridge in a Nintendo or something.
Yep.
So very cool. I'm impressed. And hopefully that'll be something that we'll be able to check out in person at whatever some events coming up or whatever. My fail um, of this week is Apple related. A lot. It's funny. A lot of this stuff that we got excited about that Apple announced both for iOS 8 and like Apple Pay with the iPhone 6. A lot of this stuff was a win at first, but sort of as they've implemented it and as it's rolled out, there have been little fails coming with it. So one of the big things in iOS 8 was Apple built in widgets to their interface. Different than Android, they're not on your home screen, but they're in your notification shade. And earlier this week, there was a kind of a fallout because Apple started banning people from making calculator widgets. So there were some pretty cool widgets you could pull down the notification shade, and there's a calculator right there. You could
Mhm.
do it right like that. Apple was like, no, this isn't really what we want you using this for. So they stopped. Apparently, they've now backtracked and they're letting people do it again because there was sort of a backlash. But it's just to me, um, it got to be Apple's either got to be all in or all out. They can't be in the middle. They either have to say we're opening up things like keyboards and widgets to everyone to do what they want to do with them, or they need to go back to how they were before and say, um, you know, we want to just keep it in house and make our own stuff. So uh, I
Yeah,
that's kind of a fail.
they gotta to walk that line between wanting their products to look nice and not wanting it to look like Android. I feel like that's a lot of people at Apple. They don't want Apple the iPhone to end up looking like cluttered and messy because of all the stuff that people install. But you kind of have to let people do what they want with their own phone.
Yeah, I mean, within I mean, they definitely they can let people have more freedom and still make it distinctly iOS and still have a certain level of control.
Absolutely.
Because until they start having things like home screen widgets and stuff like that, then it's still very much iOS 8.
And I'm not saying Android is ugly, by the way. I've seen some people who do crazy things on their phone. I mean, I think there's actually a Tumblr dedicated to like ugly Android home screens because some people just they get all that customization possibilities and it's a little too much for them. That's
They
all.
go a little overboard.
All right, so my win of the week is going to be the fan o' lantern, which Kevin mentioned. It's in my lower third right now. Uh, I had a lot of fun with it. Rob asked me to kind of make a template so people could make a Phandroid jack-o'-lantern of themselves for themselves, and that's what I did. And I ended up liking it enough that I carved it into my own pumpkin. And I don't know, I've always just enjoyed making jack-o'-lanterns. I don't know, is that something that you do, Kevin?
I'm not the most artistically inclined when it comes to visual art stuff. I don't have a very steady hand, so I used to do it more when I was younger, but it would always kind of be a mess and turn out terribly. It's not something I do every year, but I've never been opposed to it. I always have fun
All
doing it
right,
and
yeah.
pulling out the
Yeah,
seeds and
I've
other stuff.
always enjoyed it because I like to be creative. I've made some pretty cool things. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, Halloween's tomorrow, so you don't got much time. But there's a post on Phandroid about how to do it. Just print out a template and trace it. It's pretty easy.
That's the great thing about it is the template because the thing I've seen a lot of people this year, a lot of my friends have been posting these pictures of awesome jack-o'-lanterns. I'm like, I didn't know all my friends were this talented, and they're all like, no, we've just been printing out templates and cutting them onto the pumpkin. So if you aren't that talented at carving a pumpkin, this is great because you have a outline to work with.
Okay, so my fail, I actually have two fails. One of them is tech related. I'll lead with that one. So I was mentioning the Microsoft Band, and the thing I do not like about the Band is how it was launched last night. I almost think it was launched because it got leaked.
I think that's what
Because
happened.
like I don't know, 9:30 or so, all of a sudden these leaks started coming out because the app for it showed up in the Mac App Store, and then like a half hour later, at like 10 o'clock at night, Microsoft just launched it and announced it and said it was going to go on sale in the morning. So I guess it couldn't have been too last minute if they were ready to launch it in stores already, but I mean, come on, 10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday night during Game 7 of the World Series is not the time to launch a product. It's
Yeah.
just not.
No,
So,
I think their hand was forced, and they were like, "Oh, whoops, cat's out of the bag. Need to launch it."
yeah. But that I mean that leads into the second part of my fail, which is the Royals. I feel so bad, man.
I don't at all. I have no sympathy
Yeah,
for them.
but you know what? You can't tell me you weren't rooting for the Royals.
No, I wasn't. I mean, well, full disclosure, both because they're orange and black, and also because I like the city of San Francisco as a city. I've always kind of been
Okay.
the Giants have been, if not my second team, one of my, one of my not NFC, but National League teams. So I was always kind of rooting for the Giants. I was actually really looking forward to the potential of a Giants Orioles World Series, but after the Royals destroyed well, not necessarily destroyed, but after the Orioles knocked out, or the Royals knocked out the Orioles, and then when the Giants made it into the World Series, there was no question who I was hoping would win. But a good World Series overall, taking
Well,
it
I
to
just
seven
think
games,
it
and
was it was just a fail for the Giants to win because last night I tweeted Sports Nation at ESPN. They do all those polls, and they did which team are you rooting for to win the World Series? 80% of the United States was rooting for the Royals. The majority of every single state, including California, where
really,
San Francisco is from, was rooting for the Royals. And the Giants just stomped on everyone's hearts last night. It's
yeah, but the
so
Royals hung in there for ticket to
good.
7 games, so it was good, a good World Series overall. But
Yeah.
Madison Bumgarner, he would probably be another
Don't
win
even
for
want to
them.
hear about it anymore. All right. So let's select some apps here. What do you got for us, Kevin?
All right, so this week this is an app I believe I've probably mentioned on this podcast before when it kind of came out for iOS or when it got the update for the Spotify integration. But this app, Algorithm DJ, and algorithm is spelled not like algorithm, but Algoriddim, and DJ is DJAY, DJ. It got launched for Android, and this is it's a DJ app. So if you are either if you are a DJ and just want a mobile app to mess around with, or if you're an aspiring DJ or just someone that enjoys listening to music, this is something that can take the music that's in your phone's library and you can make mixes with it, mix together two tracks, whatever you want to do. But the cool thing about Algorithm DJ that I like a lot is that if you're a Spotify subscriber, it links into that, so you don't even have to have the music on your phone. You don't
Yeah.
have to have any specific song. You can find whatever songs on Spotify, queue it up on the DJ, and play it. So that's cool. It's out for Android now, so Android users can take advantage of that and throw some Android dance parties. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I do remember you talking about that a while ago, and that Spotify thing is so cool.
Yeah, there's a couple apps, at least for iOS, that do have the Spotify integration, but I think this is one of the more popular ones.
All right, my app pick is gonna, and I was hoping Chris would be here for this one too. Inbox, we talked about last week, and I don't know, have you been able to try it at all?
I haven't tried it yet, but the thing that makes me want to try it really a lot more now is since I've been using this Droid Turbo, I didn't realize how ugly Gmail for Android has gotten. Like Gmail for iOS is nice and clean and sleek.
Yeah.
Email for Android has all these crazy colors and all these menus and all this. It's just very cluttered and busy looking to me. It's very
Yeah, it's very much a hardcore email user app, which is why I do think they came out with Inbox. But yeah, I was hoping to talk about that because with Chris because I think he probably got an invite, but I've been using it since pretty much the podcast last week. I think I got my invite the next day. I've been using it as my primary email app, and I think I like it. It's kind of weird because like I'm not getting as many emails as I used to, or I should say I'm not getting notified as because the app kind of picks what it thinks you want to be notified, and you can help it make those decisions too. So every once in a while, I just open the app and I have these unread emails that it didn't tell me about, and so far, I have not missed anything important. Like everything it has not notified me of has been something I didn't need to know. So it's been doing a really good job, but there's just like something in the back of my head that is worrying, like I'm gonna miss something, and I think I just have to get over that because it's doing a really good job, and I do like it so far.
yeah. I mean, I want to check it out. I'll definitely. I mean, is it easier to get an invite right now?
I believe so. Not really sure.
I'm gonna start a service called Invite that you have to get an invite to, and all it does is collect invites for other things.
Dude, it's sad, but I actually used to be subscribed to something that was a little bit like what you just described. And it was basically just anytime like a new startup service that was invite only came out, I got like an email about it. And I
Really?
was hoping that I could get like first in line for some cool things, but I don't know if I ever even signed up for anything that it told me about. But so yeah, there are things like that out there.
Speaking though of startups, also, and this is something that is worth noting on this podcast, is that startup guy, the startup commercial guy, I've started to see him in real TV commercials.
Yes, I have too. I can't remember what the thing he was in a commercial for was.
I think
Uh,
it was still like a cell phone or something. It was still something sort of technology related, I think. But
Also, speaking of commercials, have you seen any of those new Android ads on TV?
yeah,
Because
I have seen those on TV.
you have or you haven't?
I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought that was really cool because we talked about that a couple weeks ago if we were going to start seeing those like in actual real world and not just on YouTube. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been seeing people post pictures on Google Plus too of like seeing the in like electric billboards in like New York and stuff.
Mhm.
So pretty neat that they're actually pushing that.
Yep. It's cool.
All right, I think that wraps things up. We don't have any questions sitting here.
Actually, I did just notice this pop up in the inbox. So kind of circling back to um, what we talked about earlier, the Droid Turbo. Um, David Hollingshead has sent us an email. He says he just ordered the Droid Turbo today. He went the 64 gigabyte version, but he just read that it won't support simultaneous voice and data, which has been something that Verizon's network hasn't done for a long time. But actually, the iPhone 6 can do simultaneous voice and data on Verizon's network. He's not understanding why this is. So he says, "Can you guys explain why this is an issue and what we can expect from the technology?" I'm afraid that even when it rolls out at the end of the year, there won't be backwards compatible. There will be backwards compatibility problems. Um, so, from what I understand, this issue initially stemmed from Verizon's CDMA network, and really when they upgraded to LTE, um, they did their network was technically capable. What happened with the iPhone 6 and other Verizon devices that have been able to do simultaneous voice and data is they actually have went with I believe a secondary antenna, so that if you're on a call using one antenna, there's a secondary antenna that can pick up the LTE data. That's at least my understanding. I might be a little bit wrong on that. So if someone has a better idea, but I think that might be what's going on with the Droid Turbo. So if it doesn't have that secondary antenna built in, um, what it boils down to, regardless, is that it might be a hardware limitation and not something that will ultimately be solved with backwards compatibility. Um, this will, I think, be completely when it'll be a completely moot issue at Verizon is when they roll out their Volt services with voice over LTE. Then you'll be able to do everything at once. But right now, since they're operating on separate networks for data and cellular, I think that's the main issue.
I just want to point out that that email that he asked us that question in, I did not get notified of in inbox.
Mm. I think it's just because I don't these podcast emails, I haven't filtered them to my secondary inboxes yet, so they come right into my main inbox.
Well, I mean, I just checked. I went to Gmail on the web, and it's sitting right there unread.
Oh,
So I
well,
got it. I just didn't get notified of it.
see, David's question was a victim of inbox.
Yeah.
But yeah, David, that's my understanding. So I'm not sure if it's going to be something that can be solved with like a software network update in the future. But you might want to do a little more research on it.
So just to keep everyone updated on Chris Chavez, he just tweeted, "Someone please shoot me in the face." So he is still in the Verizon store. Please tweet him your condolences. Hopefully he'll be with us next week with a new Droid Turbo for some reason, which we do not know why he went to buy one. We'll find
I
out.
would be surprised if he makes it a week without selling it on Craigslist.
Uh, so that's what you have to look forward to next week. All right, so if you want to email us like David did, you can hit us up with our email address podcast@mobileroar.com. You can also use the hashtag MobileRoar on Twitter, and we'll get questions there. You can subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Windows Phone Store, pretty much anywhere else. Leave us a review if you do that. And you can follow us on Twitter. Chris, go tweet him right now. He is at GamerCore. Kevin is at You Don't Know Kev, and I am at Tall Schmo. And we will see you guys next week. Later.